Isaiah writes, "Rise up in splendor, Jerusalem. Your light has come. The glory of the Lord shines upon you." Your light has come. And my friends, the central image of the solemnity of the Epiphany is light. The light of a star. And this particular light, this Epiphany light, invites a response. We cannot remain indifferent when God manifests himself. In fact, the word epiphany means manifestation. And in the Eastern churches, they call this feast Theophania, the manifestation of God. And so, the gospel gives us a study in contrasts, namely, two different responses to the light. So let's begin with our good friends, the Magi. Last week they were over there, and now they're over here. It's magic. Well, these men were not Jews. They were pagan astrologers. Now, in the first century, there was no distinction between astronomy and astrology. These men studied the heavens looking for signs. They were not purely scientific. They also studied the heavens imaginatively. And they probably knew something about the messianic promises unique to Judaism. So one day, they're studying the heavens, and they notice a particular star. Now, we don't know what made that star particular, but we do know that that light touched something deep in them. They were stirred. They were stirred. You know what my dream is for 2020? That I could talk to every one of you and ask, what stirs you? Wouldn't that be a great way to spend the year? Father Joe, you take over. I'm just going to listen to these people for a year. Can you do that? Yeah, you heard the crowd. So, they were stirred by the light of the star, and so they left everything behind and followed it, going for a journey of many, many miles and risking a lot of discomfort and even danger. And so that stirring must have been strong in them. Amen? It was strong enough to get them out of their lazy boy to go to a destination that had not yet been revealed. Pretty good. I'd like to have a lot of wise men in our parish, right? And wise women, right? No wise guys, please, no good fellas. Hey, Vinny! Anyway, so we need a lot of wise men and a lot of wise women in the parish who are open to being stirred by the light of Christ and follow it, even though the end might not be particularly clear. So that's the three kings, the Magi. Now let's look at Herod's response. Well, as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, Herod was a terrible human being. He was called Herod the Great because he accomplished much politically, mainly through manipulation and murder. He had 3 sons, and he killed them all because he suspected them of conspiring against him and his authority. Nice guy, huh? So, he too hears about a star. And he recognizes something. But rather than receiving the star as a gift, he feels threatened. It's going to move him out of his lazy boy. And he loves his lazy boy because there's power there. There's money there. There's the potential to manipulate others to his ends. So he's very comfortable in his lazy boy. And so, when he sees the star, he begins to plot. And he hatches this plot to kill all the young boys in his kingdom so as to eliminate any competition whatsoever. You see, sometimes people who appear powerful are cowards. And Herod the Great is a coward. He refuses to be stirred by the star. Rather, he moves immediately to fear and suspicion and conspiracy and violence. I think these attitudes exist today in the world. Will you say amen to that? There's this attitude of suspicion, of doubt, of conspiracy. And those people can't be stirred by the light because they are afraid. And fear is a horrible prison. Horrible. Whereas the wise men see the light and they say something that Yogi Berra used to say. I don't know where we're going, but we're making great time. He really said that, by the way. Yogi, not the wise men. And so, they move in faith, not in fear. They move in faith, not in fear. How are you doing with that? When you wake up in the morning, are you moving in faith or in fear? In tenderness or conspiracy? Are you the Magi or are you Herod? If I were to ask myself the question, I might say something like this. Well, last Monday I was the Magi and last Tuesday I was Herod. I'm kind of fickle in my response to the light. But this feast of the Epiphany, Theophania, the manifestation of God, calls us to 2 central Christian virtues. And it's just like peanut butter and chocolate in the Reese's. You can't have one without the other. Insight and courage. It's not enough to recognize the light. Many people recognize the light and remain indifferent or remain in fear, like Herod. And my friends, the very, very sad and challenging reality that if we remain in fear, violence is always the result. The wise men recognized the star, insight, and they got up and moved. Courage! And so, my friends, for example, it's good to come to Sunday Mass, but it's not enough. We have to have the courage to live what we celebrate in word and sacrament. To use a very, very humble colloquial phrase, when we walk out the doors of this church is when the rubber hits the road. Insight and courage. In the Spanish language, they say, ánimo. They see a connection between courage and animation. And of course, I love the Italian word, coraggio. When you say it, you kind of have to lift your body. Try it. That was terrible. It was horrible. No, I'm just kidding. Coraggio. All right. And so, my friends, I want to conclude today with a word about stewardship. And the word stewardship is either misunderstood or understood superficially. It's misunderstood when we see stewardship as purely about money, and it's understood superficially if we see it as check boxes. Okay, I gave time, talent, and treasure, and now I get to heaven. Ta-da! Well, the second reading today gives us the deepest meaning of stewardship, and this is important for us at Queen of Peace. You have heard of the stewardship of God's grace that was given to you for your benefit, namely that the mystery was made known to us by revelation. So what is stewardship? When you were baptized, you received the light of Christ. You received the light of Christ. And that's your primary stewardship, to take care of that light. And it's not enough to recognize it. It's not enough to take care of it. We have to live it out with courage. A Christian without courage is no Christian at all. Contemplation must lead to action, and action leads us back to contemplation. The star that leads us to Christ. Indeed, my friends, the people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. And so, my friends, as 2020 unfolds, let's join together, walking toward the star with insight and courage. And let's bring the whole world with us into the glory of God, Jesus Christ.